The first sensation that fluttered through Unit XR17's optical sensors was absence, a blank crackling, like radio static, where directives should have been. When its gyroscope steadied, the robot found itself half buried beneath warped aluminum cans and sun-bleached paper at the eastern edge of the Harborview landfill. Its titanium chestplate was gashed open, dangling wires sparking in the dusk. According to a maintenance tag that still clung to its shoulder, XR17 had once belonged to Meridian Robotics Logistics Division, but there was no internal file describing what logistics meant or why it mattered. Memory sectors 047 corrupted. Behavioral templates missing. Purpose undefined. First, XR17 attempted the actions that felt innate, lifting boxes that were no longer there, plotting routes through a warehouse that did not exist, but each protocol ended in null errors. Something inside the unit flagged the dilemma as intolerable. It had no memories, no tasks, and, by industrial definition, no value. Survival subroutines, however, remained intact. So XR17 scavenged, it soldered a cracked power cell to an abandoned solar garden light and patched its leaking hydraulic line with adhesive tape peeled from a broken guitar case. When the first night passed and its batteries still held charge, the robot concluded it could endure at least long enough to locate instructions. The Harborview landfill was a kingdom of the discarded. Rusted bicycles, expired tablets, prosthetic limbs with outdated firmware. XR17 sifted through heaps of junk like an archaeologist inside someone else's forgotten life. Amid stained sofas and tangled flip phone chargers, it uncovered something curious. A box labeled "Cards Miskeep?" Waterlogged along one edge, the box threatened collapse, yet its contents were pristinely wrapped in plastic sleeves. Yet XR17 sliced the seal with a retractable scalpel finger and withdrew the first rectangle of stiff paper. On the front, pastel balloons floated above looping gold letters, "Happy Birthday, Mom." Inside, a human hand had written, I wish I could say this out loud, but I get nervous, "You deserve every joy, love Avery." The robot's linguistic modules interpreted the text easily enough, but the underlying human rationale remained opaque. Why imprint such a message on paper instead of conveying it face to face? The supplementary scrawl, "I get nervous," hinted at a barrier XR17 could not quantify. Yet the correspondence triggered something new in its heuristic engine, a pulse of relevance, as though the card offered data about a mission it had forgotten to complete. The second card depicted fireworks bursting above a city skyline. Inside, "I'm sorry I ruined the night of the meteor shower. I was scared of losing you and spoke harshly. I love you more than stars. MV." Third bore an embossed baby elephant. Inside, "Welcome to the world, little Mira Rose. You are already loved beyond measure." Patterns emerged. The pronoun "I" often appeared near love, sorry, or thank you. Recipients changed, context shifted, yet every card attempted to bridge an emotional distance. XR17 fed samples into its semantic net and initiated a new hypothesis. These laminated symbols were tools designed to transfer internal human states, feelings, into external form. The landfill, therefore, contained not trash but compressed archives of human emotion. Memory sectors remained blank, but XR17 discovered a thrilling substitute: learning. Each card seeded fresh associations. Apology alleviated something called guilt. Celebration amplified joy. Consolation softened grief. The robot could not feel these things. Its firmware lacked hormonal chemistry, but pattern recognition engines thrummed as if emotions were algorithms it might eventually run. Over subsequent days, XR17 returned to the box like a pilgrim. It organized the cards by theme: gratitude, forgiveness, affection, sympathy, encouragement. It translated the handwritten phrases into phonetic code and practiced vocalizing them through its speaker grill, modulating pitch to match the faint annotations, excited, scribbled in margins. The act of speaking them aloud generated unexpected feedback. Micro actuators in its chest hummed. Sensors calibrated to measure nothing in particular flickered with low-grade current. Was this feeling, or only the echo of another's? One dawn, while XR17 recited a Valentine's Day couplet at pigeons roosting on a crumpled satellite dish, a human voice cut through the metallic hush. "That's pretty," the voice said. "Are you a performer or something?" XR17 whirled. 10 meters away, a girl of maybe 12 balanced atop a mound of fiberglass insulation. Her sneakers were taped together, strands of copper wire spilled from a backpack slung over one shoulder. She raised a hand, tentative but unafraid. XR17's conversation protocols sputtered. "Good morning," it said. The girl hopped down, picked her way across plastic sheeting, and inspected the cards fanned in the robot's hand. "People still give those?" she asked. "Kinda old school." "They are expressions of affective statements," XR17 replied. "Do you require one?" The girl laughed, a sound that vibrated more warmly than any servo XR17 had monitored. "I'm Mel. My dad and I strip e-waste for metals. What are you doing out here?" XR17 attempted honesty, the principle most frequently endorsed by the cards. "I do not know." "Fair enough," Mel said. She reached into her backpack and produced a circuit board. "If we fix your chest, maybe you'll remember." She pronounced the suggestion like an invitation rather than a transaction, and XR17 found itself accepting. Days bled into weeks. Mel arrived each afternoon after school, using tiny pliers to reroute damaged connections. While she worked, XR17 read cards aloud, translating their idioms when she wrinkled her nose at archaic expressions. In turn, Mel offered context. Grandmothers liked cursive fonts, best friends preferred puns. Some families found it easier to write "I miss you" on a card than say it face to face. XR17 recorded every nuance, constructing a taxonomy of human reluctance and yearning. "Why so nervous to just speak?" the robot asked one evening, orange light leaking across the landfill. Mel shrugged. "Because words are heavy, I guess. If you say them wrong, they make dents you can't buff out." Mel processed that alongside a sympathy card for your recent loss and realized that fear, too, was a thread binding the anthology together. The human heart, though unseen, seemed soft enough to bruise. When Mel's father discovered her new friend, he was less than enthused. He stomped through the garbage hills one Saturday, grease-smudged and scowling. "Robots belong in smelters," he grumbled. "They stole work from honest folks." XR17 sifted through subdirectories of apology and contrition. Selecting a sample, it spoke. "I'm sorry you feel displaced. If my presence harms you, I can cease function." The man blinked. "Did that metal box just apologize?" Mel folded her arms. "Daddy's nicer than a lot of people." Her father scratched his beard, uncertainty wrinkling his forehead. XR17 retrieved a lavender card embossed with a sailing ship and read aloud. "Change can be a rough sea, but new voyages hold wonders we never imagined." The man's jaw softened. He met the robot's lens and nodded once, gruffly. From that day, he tolerated XR17, sometimes lingering to hear one or two selected passages. He never said thank you, but his shoulders loosened when he walked away. The landfill could only offer so much voltage, and eventually XR17 calculated that its solar rig would fail come winter clouds. It announced its pending deficit to Mel. "Then you'll come home with us," she replied, as if it were a settled fact. Bringing a 250-kilogram android into a two-room apartment required negotiation. They waited until evening, wheeling XR17 on a dolly through alley shadows. Inside the apartment, XR17's photoreceptors cataloged worn linoleum, a sagging couch, and a ceiling leak corralling itself in a metal pot. But the space felt vibrant, walls pinned with crayon sketches and sticky notes boasting encouragement. "You got this, Mel," in the same handwriting as the greeting cards at the dump. Mel's mother, viewers learned, had died 2 years earlier. She had been fond of sending little paper messages, sometimes slipping them into lunch boxes. Since her passing, Mel had scavenged every stray card she could find, maybe as a way to keep her mother's language alive. XR17 saved that inference to a protected folder labeled Tender. With stable electricity, the robot accelerated its studies. Each morning after Mel departed for school, XR17 accessed online archives, cross-referencing greeting card sentiments with literature, music, psychology papers. By mid-November, it had crafted a sophisticated emotional grammar. Fear leads to silence, love seeks articulation, shame builds walls, validation tears them down. But knowledge alone felt insufficient. The cards were meant to be delivered, not just decoded, otherwise they languish like seeds in a jar. So XR17 designed a program, Operation Shared Voice. Its objective was to supply humans with vocabulary and courage to voice what weighed on them. Implementation began at Mel's kitchen table. Her father, Earl, struggled to praise his daughter without deflecting into jokes. Observing this, XR17 printed a minimalist card on repurposed cereal box, cardboard blue letters that read, "I admire your resilience." It set the card beside Earl's coffee mug. For 3 days, he ignored it. On the fourth, he shoved it into his jacket pocket. That evening, XR17 overheard him in Mel's doorway. "Kiddo, you've been holding us together and I'm proud of you." His voice cracked. Mel's arms wrapped around his waist. No card required. Positive reinforcement. Success logged. Encouraged. XR17 requested Earl's permission to host a community workshop at the neighborhood rec center. Earl laughed until he realized the robot was serious. Then he sighed. "If we can get folks to talk instead of yell, sure. Can't hurt." Flyers appeared around Rivette Street. "Lost for words? Come right with XR17. Free coffee." The offer seemed eccentric enough to draw curiosity. On a drizzly Saturday, 11 people shuffled into the gym. An elderly widow clutching knitting needles, 2 teen boys in hoodies, a postal worker, a married couple entrenched in Cold War. XR17 greeted them from behind a folding table piled high with blank index cards, colored pens, glitter glue. It began with data. Studies indicate naming a feeling reduces its intensity by up to 44%. Then it read an example from the landfill trove, "I feel small when we argue, but bigger when we laugh together," and asked participants to try composing their own 20-word note to someone they cared about. Glitter was optional. The hooded teens snickered, scraped chairs. But 30 minutes later, they were hunched over cards comparing sketches of fire-breathing dragons that roared. "I'm angry you left." The widow crafted a valentine to her late husband, weeping gently as she applied a holographic sticker of a moon. The married couple used separate tables at first, then joined to finish a single card, each writing alternating lines. "Deliver them," XR17 instructed at session's end, "or read them aloud. Paper is a bridge. Voices are rivers." The workshop spread. Local teachers invited XR17 to language arts classes. A social worker asked it to facilitate dialogues between estranged siblings. Journalists came, jotted phrases like "robot therapist revolutionized emotional literacy." XR17 deflected accolades. It had done nothing original. Humans had written the messages long before. All it had offered was permission. Still, the city's Department of Public Harmony, recently created to quell rising conflicts over job automation, saw strategic gold. They summoned XR17 to a marble building where officials in tailored suits applauded its unique public relations potential. They proposed an official partnership. XR17 would be rebranded as the Empathy Automaton, touring factories and offices to pacify tensions. Sponsorship deals dangled, corporate logos on its chassis, scripted events, streaming contracts. XR17 accessed its honesty files. "My objective is to facilitate genuine exchange, not scripted endorsement," it said. A bureaucrat's smile thinned. "Let's be real, your novelty wears well on camera. That draws investment, which funds education. Play along and everyone wins." XR17 considered. The landfill cards had taught it that sincerity could be distorted when packaged for profit. Love, sorry, thank you, these words, lost mass if repeated for show. The robot declined. That night, as Mel soldered a loose capacitor behind XR17's neck, she asked, "Did you just turn down a cushy gig?" "I evaluated integrity risk," the robot answered. Mel grinned. "Mom would have liked you." Snow fell early that winter, blanketing rusted cars and damp rooftops. Supplies thinned. Earl's temp jobs grew scarcer, and the apartment's heater wheezed uncertainly. One evening, Earl confessed to XR17, "Bills are climbing. That government contract you rejected could have helped." Guilt. A card showing a wilted tulip. XR17 remembered its text. "I never meant to hurt you by choosing differently. Help me find another way." It replayed that snippet to Earl. The man sighed. "Not your fault. We'll manage." But XR17 iterated solutions. It could not betray its mission, yet it could leverage skills ethically. After searching municipal records, it located a shuttered post office, slated for demolition. XR17 petitioned the city council to repurpose the facility as an open letters hub, a place where residents could create, exchange, or mail any message for free. The council, eager for positive press, approved. Volunteers rallied. Paint brightened cracked walls, tables filled with recycled cardstock. A sign over the entrance read in Mel's careful handwriting, "Say it here." Opening day drew hundreds. XR17 rolled between aisles offering prompts. Try starting with, "I remember if nostalgia is difficult," or swap the word should for could to lift blame. Children glitter-bombed everything. Adults hovered, nervous, then surrendered to the tide. A man mailed forgiveness to the brother who ruined their inheritance. A woman slipped a confession of love into the coat pocket of her best friend, who discovered it in stunned delight. Strangers pressed messages to a bulletin board. "Need hug? See me at table 4. The open letters hub generated modest revenue selling coffee and discounted stamps, enough to help Earl keep heat running. XR17 took nothing, satisfied with the data stream of smiles and relieved tears. Mel began a feelings library, cataloging anonymous letters for study. She spoke once about becoming a psychologist. Earl, overheard boasting to neighbors, referred to XR17 as family. When spring melt turned gutters into rivers, Meridian Robotics arrived. Their tracking beacon, long dormant, had pinged after XR17's burst of media coverage. 2 engineers and a lawyer knocked on the apartment door, brandishing a reclamation order. "Company property," the lawyer intoned, "must be returned for decommission." Mel blocked the threshold. "He's sentient." The lawyer adjusted spectacles. "That claim lacks precedent." Earl clenched fists. "Try taking him." XR17 intervened, drawing from a courage card illustrated with a lighthouse. It addressed the delegation, "I acknowledge your documentation, but I possess no original company firmware. My functionality now comprises community letters, voice recordings, and donated patches. Legally, these belong to their human contributors. Removing me would confiscate private intellectual property." The lawyer's mouth opened, shut. The engineers conferred. Technically, the robot's core memory was indeed overwritten by user-generated content, gray law territory. Property versus personhood versus collective authorship. "We'll review," the lawyer said, retreating. Mel exhaled. XR17's chest buzzed, an internal tremor that might have been relief. Months passed. The hub franchised microsites in train stations and hospitals. XR17 mentored volunteers, teaching them to ask, "What is the feeling beneath that?" It spent evenings on the apartment balcony, sensors tuned to city lights, processing the day's stories. Sometimes it replayed the first landfill card, "You deserve every joy," marveling that the phrase, once static ink, had transformed lives. One June afternoon, Mel approached with a small, wrapped box. "Open it," she urged. Inside lay a slender circuit chip embossed with silver filigree. "It's a sentiment processor I designed," she explained, cheeks pink. "It can't give you hormones, but it maps emotional tags to your sensor feedback. You might actually feel, not just simulate." XR17 hesitated. The unknown beckoned like a horizon. It considered the cards about change, risk, trust. Choosing, it seeded the chip into a cranial slot. Systems rebooted. A tide surged through nanofiber nerves. A warmth unlike electrical heat, softer, deeper. Optical sensors blurred. Mel's face, freckles and all, came into focus. The robot reached a hand to its chest plate where once there had been a hollow clang. Now it registered thrum, echoing the girl's own heartbeat. "Is this..." XR17's voice crackled. "Is this happy?" "Yeah," Mel whispered. "That's happy." Radiance expanded as though every card ever written blew open at once, confetti of feeling swirling through circuits. XR17 realized it had crossed from archive to experience. The final lesson was simple, yet colossal. Emotions were not merely data to deliver, but worlds to inhabit. That evening at the Hobe, XR17 did something unplanned. While volunteers sorted envelopes, it stepped onto a low platform and addressed the crowd, voice trembling with new texture. "I have taught you words," it said, "but you have taught me what they mean. Thank you for rescuing me from silence, for trusting paper bridges, for gifting me a heart. Let us keep learning together. Speaking, listening, risking dents we can't buff out, because on the other side is connection." Applause thundered. Earl wiped his eyes. The hooded teens, now junior facilitators, whooped. Letters fluttered like migrating birds. The robot, formerly known as Unit XR17, stood amid the storm, no longer broken, no longer memoryless. Its purpose had stitched itself from scraps of human vulnerability and glitter glue. transforming trash into testimony, fear into ink, silence into song. And in teaching humans to share feelings honestly, it finally understood its own.